Glad you could join us today on Earthfile. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayola Kasim. The world is facing severe challenges. Billions of people around the world are suffering the consequences of the climate emergency, food and water insecurity, and the COVID-19 pandemic. The current devastating pandemic has brought into sharp focus how our mismanagement of nature is not only causing ecological breakdown and exacerbating climate change, but driving the emergence of zoonotic diseases. As a recently released report has highlighted, we urgently need solutions which tackle the climate crisis, biodiversity loss, and society challenges together. Nature restoration is critical to this effort, but just increasing the protection and the sustainable management of our remaining natural landscapes and oceans will not be enough. The planet's degraded ecosystems and the huge benefit that they provide must also be restored. We'll look at how this can be achieved today on Earthfile. Just stay with us. It's a good start to the day for Marian Ndong. She's hoping to bring home a good catch. She and her colleagues make a living farming and selling oysters and cockles in the delta of Saloum in the Fatick region of Senegal. However, 10 years ago, the picture was very different. Many of these mangroves have disappeared. Senegal is among the worst affected countries on the continent. Persistent drought linked to climate change saw nearly 40% of its mangrove area lost since the 1970s. The mangroves not only cultivate wildlife and sea life like shellfish, but also act as a protective barrier between the land and the sea. Marianne owes her livelihood to a local project which funded the huge mangrove reforestation in the region.
Reforestation is very important. If the sea today has not taken our village, this is thanks to reforestation. If nothing had been done, the sea would have destroyed the village. When you reforest, you see the mud in the mangrove. The mud reduces the force of the sea, and the sea can no longer attack the village.
Mangroves are essentially for preventing soil erosion, holding back rising sea levels and promoting marine ecosystems. But in the last 25 years, Africa has lost nearly 500 hectares of its mangroves due to drought, deforestation and construction. The latest landmark report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change said humanity's damaging impact on the climate is a treatment of fact, and stated that a rise in sea levels approaching 2 meters by the end of this century cannot be ruled out.
It's really important to reforest areas around Senegal with mangroves, because mangroves really provide the last bastion of resilience in countries such as Senegal. Deforestation, road construction and other areas have led to the denudation of these kind of forested areas that have essentially meant that incomes have been lost by vulnerable communities. And this is what IFAD is trying to redress now.
Funded by the International Fund for Agricultural Development and the Senegalese government, more than 50,000 families in the region benefit from mangrove reforestation. This also includes loans and training in how to add value to their product.
When I started this business, I didn't know a lot. I didn't know that we could farm oysters. I did not know that we could make nurseries to grow oysters. Now we take the oysters, we put them to boil and dry. By processing them, we see that we earn much more, because a tub full of dry oysters does not make you much profit. If you transform and put them in the jars, you earn a lot more.
The extra income means that Marion can pay for her children's education and clothing. As climate change continues to grab the headlines, this small project is playing its part to help communities adapt and survive. The project aims to reforest more than 1,000 hectares of mangroves in the next few years. Protecting this ecosystem not only provides a vital habitat for sea life, but for thousands of fishing communities like this one. The homes and livelihoods of people depend on it. The United Nations says its decade on ecosystem restoration provides a unique opportunity to transform food, fiber, and feed production systems to meet the needs of the 21st century and to eradicate poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. Reviving ecosystems and other natural solutions could contribute over 1/3 of the total climate mitigation needed by 2030. Restoration can also curb the risk of mass species extinctions and future pandemics. Agroforestry alone could increase food security for 1.3 billion people. The restoration of forest landscapes, farming, livestock, and fish-producing ecosystems should primarily contribute to restoring them to a healthy and stable state, so that they are able to provide ecosystem services and support human needs for sustainable production and livelihoods. For example, around 1/3 of the world's farmland is degraded. About 87% of inland wetlands worldwide have disappeared since 1700. And 1/3 of commercial fish species are overexploited. Degradation is already affecting the well-being of an estimated 3.2 billion people. That is 40% of the world's population. Every single year, we lose ecosystem services worth more than 10% of our global economic output. If we can manage to reverse this trend, scientists say massive gains await us.
And this is to set the scene and have a discourse.
In line with this, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, through its advocacy lecture instituted in memory of its founder, late Chief Shafi Lawal Edu, charged youth recently on the need for them to take the lead in the campaign, process, and activities leading to the restoration of the ecosystems in the country. These efforts are aimed at saving a world that is in a dire need of ecosystem restoration and threatened by climate change.
One of the major reasons why we have the loss of nature and deforestation is because we are doing our agriculture wrong, and we have to reimagine and reorientate how we do our agriculture. NCF has a long history and tradition of engaging youth, whether it's in setting up school conservation clubs, university conservation associations, youth groups in communities, or holding marches and rallies across various cities in Nigeria, where youths have been the vanguard in raising awareness on climate change and environmental degradation.
Through its Green Recovery Nigeria initiative, its efforts towards restoring Nigeria's forest cover, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation says it has planted about 2 million tree seedlings across the country as part of its afforestation program. The foundation is now focusing on youths in order to drive the new message and involve them in activities that would call the attention of more people to both the challenges and possible solutions.
Nigeria is about 960,000 square kilometers, almost 1 million if you like. Therefore, if we are talking about 25% forest cover, we must be talking about planting 250,000 square kilometers. Now, so the NCF itself is now committed as a priority to what we call the Green Recovery Nigeria. We're working with the Ministry of Environment. We have to find a way of the next 10 to 15 years bringing back Nigeria from its 3% forest cover now to at least 25%. Now, this involves production of seedlings. This involves having planted, making sure they are maintained. But in doing this, I was very happy about 2 years ago One was visiting the Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Ibadan. And they had a seedling production unit. And they had discovered and were trying to breed seedlings of 105 different species of hardwood, which are indigenous and which therefore survive much better. Not only that, they help us to hold the soil and prevent all the erosion.
The foundation appeals to Nigerians to stop polluting the natural resources, adding that the country could lose 1 million species in few decades. This year's lecture's guest speaker said the world needs urgent restoration of the ecosystem, which has been degraded for a long time. She says youths have a role to play in the ecosystem restoration.
In Africa, we have a lot of great policies. We also have strategic plans that we continue to adopt, but implementation on the ground is not happening as it should be. And this is due to a lot of reasons, some of them that are very sad because they need us to call leaders for accountability. Some of them is a governance issue. The second of them that we are all aware, unfortunately, in our continent at large, is corruption. There are these projects, there is money for them, but the money disappears. So there's need for us to call for accountability from the leaders and those in power. But another perspective I wanted to put in is, you see the restoration part, we are already dealing with a crisis. We can avoid getting to this crisis by dealing with the drivers of degradation, right? We need to change how we view development. A lot of EIA, environmental impact assessments, happen in Africa, but sometimes they get passed on when it's very clear that the area where, for example, oil is being deposited shouldn't be. It's a sensitive area. So I feel we need to change how we do development. We do have EIA processes, but unfortunately, it also all boils down to this issue of governance. But in summary, what I'm emphasizing, there are policies, there are strategic plans. We need to get on into the implementation. We need to deal with these drivers of degradation. But the other bigger elephant in the room, which a lot of us seems to not have power on, is a governance issue and a corruption issue.
Scientists have said, far from being something that is nice to have, restoration is essential to mitigating climate change, ensuring food security for a growing population, and halting biodiversity loss.
It has been attacked by an insect.
Dr. Adedoyin Ogunwande is a research scientist who leads the Tree Improvement Section of the Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria. The team works to improve the gestational age of both exotic and indigenous trees in the country. Their research aims to increase the quality of commercially grown species and to ensure that stock of the most appropriate genetic origin is used in forest establishment.
Since it is our duty here to make sure we make the forest available, then we need to get encouraged and keep working at it. And that is why we keep doing what we are doing. If we are discouraged, we will have abandoned this long ago and look for something lucrative to do, because you know the number of years it will take this to grow to be a big tree for them to cut. But as we are working at it, reducing the gestation period, doing this, doing that, encouraging plantation establishment, maybe through enlightening people through extension work on what it is to plant a tree, the advantage to you and to me, then I believe it is all these things are necessary to make this tree established, to make it to be available for use. So we can't be discouraged. We are encouraged.
The team understands that it has a difficult task as many people cut the trees daily. The absence of sufficient data affects the effectiveness of government policies on the forestry sector. If these issues persist and the forests are not given adequate attention, experts say it will continue to yield less productivity, which will be compounded with problems of deforestation. Yakuba Sawadago is known as the man who stopped the desert. It is also said that he brought life back to the arid lands of Waiguria in northern Burkina Faso. His accomplishments earned him the Champions of the Earth 2020 award from the United Nations Environment Programme, which says Yakuba's vision, innovation and determination succeeded in reversing the desertification process that was decimating his agricultural community. Yakuba says it is about planting enough trees to create shade and bring down the heat to help other plants grow.
There is no tree that I can't grow here today. I'm very happy to receive this award. I was simply guided by the will that I had.
In the 1980s, people in the semi-rural city of Waiguria, a city of more than 70,000 people, started feeling the effect of climate change, rising temperatures, and a drop in rainfall. Yakuba said the desert spread and drought led to famine in the north of the country and the neighboring Mali.
This tree that I have just planted will produce a lot of umbrage. It will also bear fruit which will benefit people and animals. It is a really good tree.
Subsistence farmers in the Sahel region depend on rain-fed agriculture, and as the rains lessened and became more erratic, crops started to fail and animals and trees died. Rather than flee the region like other farmers, Yakuba decided to see if he could improve on the local Zai technique of planting widely used by thousands of farmers in the region for this type of dry, hardened earth. Traditionally, farmers start working the land during the rainy season when they plant a seed in a hole dug in the degraded earth. Yakuba believed it would work better if the land was prepared well before the wet season, so he dug wider and deeper holes and filled them with natural organic compost. He also surrounded the planting area with rocks so that when the rain starts, the water is directed towards the seeds and none of the moisture is lost.
The forest you see here today was a real desert before. There was no umbrage or shadow from a single tree right here. At the beginning, our harvest was not good at all. But since we used Zai, we can grow all sorts of different types of agricultural culture at the village. That applies to the trees.
His son, Lukman, said another key ingredient of the success of this method was termites. Termites build a network of underground tunnels around the plant that act as water canals and irrigate the shoots. And so once the rains arrive, Yakuba is ready to plant the seed in naturally fertilized well-drained holes. UNEP says although it is a labor-intensive technique, it did increase production by 100% to 150% for the smallholder farmers.
We dig, we put in the seeds, and then we add organic material and dead leaves. When it rains, it's going to attract termites that dig holes. And even if the rain is not plentiful, the water will seep in, and the seeds or animals will benefit.
Yakuba applied the same technique to plant trees, which he says are crucial to reducing the effect of climate change and which he sees as the source of most life. Today, the 70-year-old walks around his 40-hectare forest, containing more than 60 species of bushes and trees, as well as medicinal herbs that he dispenses to the local community. Medicine is hard to access in this region, and carefully selected herbs can help alleviate many illnesses.
It is my love for trees that pushed me to invest in this forest, because I know that trees can bring so much to the life of man. Trees strengthen the beauty of life.
The Zai technique is also used to plant trees for the Great Green Wall project. Yakuba says he never stops improving on the technique by closely observing the results of the planting to see if he can make it better and tweaking the planting method each year. He has taught the improved technique to farmers in the region and to his sons. Lukman says he was taught forest management for 2 years at the National School of Water and Forest and created a nursery when he came back in 2017, focusing on endangered species. He said he produced 45 different species in his first year. UNEP says Yakuba is an inspiration to all who want to take affirmative action to overcome the devastating effect of climate change and help save the environment. He's a model of survival in a community of farmers who, 40 years ago, became climate refugees. Yakuba does not believe he alone can save the environment and knows farmers are still facing the hardship of rising temperatures and an increasingly unforgiving arid land. And by championing the earth and teaching others, he has shown it is possible to begin to repair the planet and avoid forced migration. And many more are praising Yakuba's work, as climate change has indeed multiplied new and unprecedented forms of natural disasters. They are heavily felt in the agricultural industry and in turn have displaced many. The Food and Agriculture Organization says at no other point in history have agri-food systems faced more hazards such as mega fires, extreme weather, unusually large desert locust swarms, an emerging biological threat as during the past year of the COVID-19 pandemic, nor have they been seen at such frequency, intensity and complexity. These disasters devastate agricultural livelihoods, inflicting cascading negative economic consequences from household to national levels that could potentially endure for generations. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, disasters happen 3 times more often today than in the 1970s and 1980s.
The major issues that came up of the report, first is the importance of the effects on agriculture of disasters. In the overall, we are talking of a 26% of damage is borne by the agricultural sector as a share of the total damage and loss in all sectors between 2008 and 2018. And if we just focus on the loss of agriculture relative to the share of total damage in agriculture, industry, tourism, and commerce is 63% in agriculture.
Adaptation to climate change, particularly for small-scale producers that comprise the majority of farmers around the world, will be necessary to efforts to eradicate poverty and hunger. Without adaptation, researchers now estimate that climate change could depress growth in global crop yields by 5 to 30% by 2050. The 500 million small farms around the world will be most affected. Moreover, farmers and other rural people constitute a significant portion of the 100 million people within developing countries that climate change could push below the poverty line by 2030. By declaring the United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, governments have recognized the need to prevent, halt, and reverse the degradation of ecosystems worldwide for the benefit of both people and nature. The 2021 to 2030 timeline underlines the urgency of the task. The United Nations says without a powerful 10-year drive for restoration, we can neither achieve the climate target of the Paris Agreement nor the Sustainable Development Goals. And with that, we end today's program. Thank you for being a part of it. Please don't forget our inbox, earthfile@channelstv.com, is available for your comments and your questions. From all of us here in Lagos, it's bye for now.